Send a powerful message to those people who live in the past and tell them no more business as usual and no more repeat performances because we're going to make America great again.
Hey everyone, welcome once again to yet another spectacular episode of Two Noobs Talking. It's episode 51. With me, of course, is my good buddy John Tracy. John, how you doing, man? What's going on?
It's the Chucha show.
That's right.
I've been waiting for this one.
That's right.
This is my favorite catcher ever.
He's one of the best catchers ever in the history of the Phillies. You can't go wrong with that. Of course, I'm Matt Craig, and we are really happy to have you with us. And John and I are really excited today. We got a great special guest with us. It's our good buddy, Dr. Alex Page, affectionately known as Doc. He did not invent the flux capacitor, although I would not be surprised if he does end up getting a DeLorean and putting a flux capacitor in the system. We'll get to that. But Doc Page is a family practice physician. He lives outside of Philadelphia. He graduated medical school in 2002, and we really have been kind of just wanting to have him on, just to talk a little bit about health and wellness and a little bit about his interests. So, Doc, welcome to Two Noobs Talking. It's great to have you with us.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you. So let's just dive right in. Kind of just tell the audience here for us, like, how did you get involved in wanting to become a doctor? And, we have a couple of your interests we'll get to a little bit later, but how did you, what drove you to become a practicing doctor?
You guys are going to laugh a little bit at this one. So when I was in college, I really kind of didn't know what I was going to do. And I ended up joining the local ambulance company. And I started I took the EMT classes, started running with the ambulance crew. And I honestly didn't have much interest in medicine at that point. I honestly just wanted to drive fast and run red lights.
That makes sense.
So I took I spent most of the time initially the first year just driving the ambulance and taking the EVOC courses and just doing all that stuff. And then as I got more involved in it and I started volunteering for the college I went to, I started getting more interested in the medicine aspect of things. And I just looked at where I was going in life and I was like, I could stay in EMT, could, move to be a paramedic, but I'm just a motivated person that just wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And it ended up, before graduating, applying to medical school. And I was very fortunate and was able to be accepted, and it took off from there.
It's amazing. Wow.
That's literally how it started. I was all into cars and racing, and I really wanted to be some sort of mechanic race car driver, but I figured I was going to school and had to do something with school, so I figured, all right, let's go this way, and this way I could kind of satisfy both. I could drive fast and help people at the same time.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Did you ever think, if you didn't have that opportunity, would you have gone into racing or something along those lines, or if you had to do it over again, that kind of a thing?
I might have. The problem with it is that it's a very close knit community, and if your name isn't Andretti or Earnhardt or something like that, it's very, very difficult to get into. Not to mention the fact that I wasn't tremendously, as much as I loved it, I'm not tremendously coordinated. So the other thing is that I've raced before and I did some racing, but doing circle track racing, I ended up having real bad vertigo. I was actually at a track, remember the old Nazareth Speedway?
Yep.
And I was doing a racing class there, and I was in the car, and all of a sudden I'm coming out of turn one, and all of a sudden everything starts spinning on me.
Ooh.
And I thought I was crashing. So I slam on the brakes, I close my eyes, I'm ready to hit the wall, and the guy on the radio is saying, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm going to hit the wall." He's like, "You're sitting by yourself in the middle of the track. You're going to get clocked by some other car." I said, I am spinning. I'm hitting the wall. He's like, "You are sitting in the middle of the track, not moving."
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, and so finally they came out, they got me out of the car. I couldn't see straight. I was spinning, everything, all the tests came back normal. It just was a bad bout of vertigo.
Wow.
And from that point on, I haven't been able to do roller coasters or even like water slides can sometimes trigger it. So
Crazy.
I kind of gave up on that. I'm fine if I'm driving a regular car. And actually I switched to drag racing after that.
Interesting.
So for straight line, I'm good to go. You throw a curve in it, forget it. I can't do it.
That's amazing. Wow.
No left turns for Alex.
Exactly.
Noted.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of the deciding factor. Like, all right, listen, I think I'm going to do something else. And I just enjoyed working on cars so much. I wanted to do it. I didn't want to make it a career because I was afraid if I made it a career, I wasn't going to enjoy it as much as I enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I chose the route I went. And I'm very happy with it. I like what I do. I still get to maintain my hobbies. So I get the best of both worlds. I like what I do and I get to enjoy the stuff that I grew up loving as a child and doing it as a hobby. And I'm able to balance it that way. It's great.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's so important to have a really good hobby and that you love it, even though you're still doing, you're called to be a doctor, I think. And,
Right.
You went down that road, but then you always have that love affair of the things that you love to do or, the things that interest you the most, but you have it on the side. I think that's kind of like what John and I'd like to do here with Two Noobs. We've grown to love it. And I know, I'm a huge, as you can tell, huge sports memorabilia guy. So I've got all kinds of stuff, when it comes to I get the NFL mini helmet collection, as you know, and other things as well. So it's just awesome stuff for sure. Yeah.
Cool to have hobbies. It definitely is. My question with this past 2020 into 2021, how much did that change your perspective on things? Because you being a medical doctor and this being a medical crisis that we had, worldwide, how much did that kind of change your thought process, just your thought process in general?
It changed quite a bit, honestly, because when you're young, you think you're kind of invincible. And as you get older, you realize that, you're not. And things that you could do when you were 20, you can't do when you're 40, and what really struck me with this is, we all remember it's almost like a cataclysmic shift in the world at this point. Cause we remember 2019. We remember, we wouldn't think anything of going to a hockey game and sitting amongst 15,000 people or going to a football game and having 70,000 people or whatever else. And then when COVID hit, it's all of a sudden, they basically tried to shut down everything. Everything was shut down. You couldn't even get your hair cut.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yep.
And people were dying that, it's one thing to have heart disease. It's one thing to have a lot of chronic medical conditions where, you hope for the best, or cancer. Anybody can get that. Anybody can get struck by lightning at any point, hit by a bus, whatever.
Yeah.
But here, all of a sudden, we had something that we couldn't see. You couldn't see it, and it could take you out in a matter of days, and it really, really changed a lot of perspective on a lot of scenarios because it's like, I'm a healthy guy and through no fault of my own, I could go to the supermarket, get this thing that I can't see, feel like crap and die. Yeah.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I never would have thought of that, I would have gone to the supermarket, and not thought twice and thinking I was going to die because some guy sneezed in the checkout line in front of me.
Yeah.
And it makes you kind of appreciate, a lot of things. And it makes you realize that life is fleeting. I've had a lot of patients, I've had a lot of patients contract COVID. And for the most part, fortunately, I've had most of them do, survive and do okay. Again,
that's
the
great news.
Fatality rate of this is small compared to the overall scope of it.
No doubt.
Which is good.
Amen.
But
we are very blessed for that.
Yeah.
Right. It's
It could
still
be-
a
it could
scenario
have been
that it can
40
still
times.
take you out.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, it's scary that way.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes you kind of wonder, you know, it makes you almost love every day more, because of like, what's going to happen tomorrow?
Oh, I totally agree. Just as a side note to that, just I have never shared this on the podcast, but I think sharing it with the doctor would be a thing. One of the great things came out of COVID for me is it made me put my mind forward, and I was able to quit smoking like that because it gave me a reason.
Right.
And I know there's a lot. That's what I meant. That's what I was kind of going with the conversation is a lot of positives came out, like you just said, like people taking more time for their kids. And my sister retired from her work to spend more time with their daughter because she was forced to do it before. And I don't want to go back. I don't want to, I don't want to slave over this. I'd rather do these kinds of things. So you do see a lot of positives in people taking each day one day at a time, because it can be taken away from you.
Yeah.
Easily.
Right. Johnny, I would say probably on top of that, just to piggyback on your point, I know for me, like my diet has definitely improved. Certainly during the last year and a half, I've eaten a lot more fruit than I can ever really remember over the course of my life. I mean, I barely touched fruit to begin with. And vitamin D3 and all that kind of stuff, taking that as a supplement with the diet, and really portion controls and making sure that I'm exercising, walking every day, and enjoying the life that I have, as opposed to like getting all the salt content from like frozen foods. That used to be my diet. I mean, and I would be like 220 some odd pounds. And now it's like I'm right around 190, probably 185 right now. I mean, it's like it's been a dramatic reduction in the weight loss for sure for me. But really, not that COVID scared me, but it was like that was a certainly a catalyst to kind of get healthy and improve myself in that regard. So yeah.
And that's a good thing. I mean, and that has happened for a good number of people. Alternatively, the change in routine, gyms closing down, stuff like that, created a lot of disruption for a lot of other people. I mean, we kind of make a little bit of a joke. They called it COVID-19 because of the 19 pounds you gained from being in the lockdown, from everything being shut down.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Because that happened to a lot of people as well.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Yeah. How many times can you walk the dog, right? At some point, you got to do something else and walking the dog.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the funny part where me and Matt kind of, when we did the podcast, we kept looking at stuff like that. And we were taking COVID seriously, but what we were getting angry at is like these governors and these people that were, shutting stuff down when they had no right to do it. That's what we started kind of focusing on. Like, how can you tell us to be healthy and stay healthy, but you won't let us go anywhere? Like, that's what we kind of started.
Unfortunately, that created a lot of what you're seeing now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hypocrisy that goes on with this whole scenario, and it's a shame. And I think that unfortunately breeds upon itself, and that's kind of why we're in the state we're in now.
Yeah.
Because they're telling you to do all this stuff, yet they're not doing it, or this or that or the other, and you see all this hypocrisy, and it makes you wonder, like, all right, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
And I could, I see it from a different perspective, because it's something that you can't see. I can't see a viral thing. I can't see that. But I see it from a different perspective because I see the patients that have it.
Yes.
And I can see what they're going through. I can see how they're feeling. I can see the stress they're under from it. I can see the concern because it's such a contagious issue. The fear for their family, the fear for their loved ones, back, last year before Thanksgiving, is it safe to have people over to eat Thanksgiving with each other? Something we've done for eons.
Yeah. Sure.
And now all of a sudden, just something as simple and as joyous as that occasion, all of a sudden becomes a reason for stress and anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
It made it in my family, it made me and my wife cancel coming back because we didn't want to put stress on people. You know what I mean? Like, because we didn't know how Pennsylvania was. We could living in Texas. It's a little they handle it a little differently here, but it's also so
Right.
wide open. You're not like right up on people all the time. The houses are far apart.
Yeah, and
Not
yet,
like it's not very close. So I understand.
Yeah. It's
certain
not
things that
Manhattan.
they do here. Yeah.
yeah, and I was just going to say, like, for me and my family, Doc, we ended up having Thanksgiving dinner, but we made sure at the table,
Mhm.
farthest part apart, everybody was we were 6 feet apart. We were basically just stretching our arms out just to make sure that everybody was okay, and everybody was fine, and everybody was okay in that regard. And no one came down with a case. It was a party of 6. Now, yeah, was it a part? It was a small party. You're not going to have that kind of,
Right.
Certainly the level of risk was definitely, I think, on the lower end of the spectrum. But if you're talking a family of 20, that's where the concern was, I think, for a lot of
From different
people. And it's
states,
kinda
that
like,
kind of thing. Yeah, you totally,
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
totally understand that.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the hypocrisy is really driving people really crazy. I think you see it on the
I think so.
politics. You see it with the vaccine camps. You see the pro-vaccinators. You see the anti-vaccinators. And it's segregating the country in a really bizarre, strange, and yet sinister way.
Yeah.
And really, I think people want to have like answers to these questions. And I think that's kind of where, like, John and I were really kind of wanting to bring you on to kind of get your thoughts on it. I know you said in pre-production you're pro-vaccine.
Right.
Without getting into too much minutia, why do you think that is? And what do you think would be the best steps for people to kind of navigate through this season that we're coming out of? Because I think we are on the downturn again with the Delta variant now being present. Cases are starting to drop a little bit over the last couple of weeks. I did notice that in the Wall Street Journal. But yeah, wanted to get your thoughts on that, like overall.
Okay. Well, I'm very big on the vaccine because, one, ultimately it's got to be safe. Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
And everybody says it's new. The technology's been around for over 25 years.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's been very well studied. The reason why it's new is simply because we've never had a reason to use it.
Yes.
There was no disease out there that we needed to use it for.
Mhm.
So, being that, it's just something that it's been very well studied. Now, it's a very different type of vaccine than what we're used to. Okay.
Flu. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Going back centuries when, smallpox vaccine and stuff like that,
Mhm.
which started it all,
Mm-hmm.
we used either dead or very weakened viruses
Mm-hmm.
to get in your system, not make you sick, and cause an immune response to it. So that if your body came in contact with it again, it would fight it off without you even knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. What this one does is different. This one actually uses a little mRNA strand to go into the tissue of your muscle and create a protein that is one of the proteins on the COVID virus.
Mm-hmm.
So that your body sees that protein and says, hey, this is not supposed to be here, gets antibodies to that, so that if you're exposed to COVID, it fights it off easily. Okay.
Mhm.
It's actually a better way to go. It's a much more safer way of actually doing vaccination because there's no risk of actually you contracting the disease.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike before, throughout the big failure of vaccines in the past was that you could get one, but since it's a live or weakened virus, you could actually get it.
Mm-hmm.
Some the nasal flu vaccine was like that,
Mm-hmm.
but this way you can't get it because you're not actually getting disease. You're getting your body's getting trained to learn a small protein
Mm-hmm.
and learn to fight that off, which then if you get contracted, your body sees that protein, boom, kills the virus off and you don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the drawbacks is it's not 100% proof. We are seeing breakthrough cases.
Yep.
Mhm.
Fortunately, not many.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I've seen now I see a lot of patients each week, and and I see them for everything. I see them for toenail fungus to congestive heart failure to whatever. But my COVID cases I've seen, most of the ones that have been vaccinated have had a very mild
Mhm.
illness
Mm.
that was maybe a bad cold, or at worst a bad cold.
Okay.
Interesting.
And we're not. I think COVID is going to be here to stay. I don't think we're going to ever eradicate it. I think it's going to be like the flu. But if we can make it so that, all right, if it's like a cold, I mean, we all get colds every year. If we can make it so it's that, all right, we can live our lives like we did before. And not have to overtly worry about it. You're going to be at no greater risk of going to a football game and getting a cold or whatever else, and or COVID, and it won't be that big of a deal. It's not going to be the severe disease that you would see.
Yeah.
Quick question with what you were saying with the spike protein in COVID. Is it the SARS-2 virus that the protein's from, or is it the specific to the COVID-19 strain?
The vaccines right now are specific more to the COVID-19, but COVID-19 and SARS-2 is about the same thing.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because people get it a little confused.
No.
Yeah, it's COVID-19, so it's got a long name, and it's the same essential scenario.
Okay.
The other nice thing about the vaccine is that, all right, everybody talks about variants. There's Delta variants, there's Mu variants, there's all sorts of these variants now. And the longer these things last, the more they're able to mutate into something else.
Yes.
Okay. The vaccine can be retooled really fairly quickly, so that if we were to somehow get a variant that is really far off the immunological scale, we can retool a vaccine very quickly using this method. Like within probably within a week or two or even 3, like very, very quickly.
Wow.
Which would
then be able to help
scare
stop
people also,
right.
but
it's beneficial that way.
No, that's extremely interesting.
So that's why, and people say, well, all right, well, if enough people get it, you get herd immunity. That's one of the arguments I hear.
Yeah.
Throughout human history, we have not necessarily eradicated any disease by herd immunity by people just getting it.
No.
All right. Smallpox, we eradicated due to the vaccine. Smallpox was around for centuries prior to that. People would still get it. Polio. We've pretty much eradicated. Polio has been around for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And it was a matter of the vaccine. So people, there's not going to be enough people getting COVID to be able to create where nobody else is going to be able to get it.
Yeah.
It's going to be the vaccine that's going to take this away. And again, it's here to stay at this point. We're not going to get rid of it. This is not going to be something that's going to be eradicated. Like I don't think, I mean, it may very well be in the future. Who knows? We may come up with better techniques, but as it stands right now, it's going to be something that we're going to be dealing with probably for the next few decades.
Yeah.
And if we can make it harmless or much less harmful, that's the best we're going to be able to hope for right now.
Exactly. I think you also see that with the therapeutic drugs. I'm thinking in terms of ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, the cocktail. Everybody, they're throwing the kitchen sink, the monoclonal antibodies that have come out.
Right.
Things along those lines. What's insidious to me, Doc, is I've seen reports of and I think this goes to the politics of it, where you have like a president that's like, okay, we're going to reduce the amount of monoclonal antibodies. I mean, let's face it, if it's available, let's throw the kitchen sink at this thing.
I agree.
As opposed to just limiting this to specific that kind of thing. That doesn't help us in the long run. I think that's where it kind of,
I've used a lot of monoclonal antibody. I'm very familiar with the monoclonal antibody. I've used a ton of it. I've sent a ton of people for it. It has helped immensely. The hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, they're kind of falsehoods. I didn't prescribe them once in a year and a half.
Huh.
Okay.
Huh.
So taking a step back, when COVID basically landed in our country, okay, the first couple of weeks, we looked at how China and how Italy kind of treated their patients. Okay. And we look at their treatment plans and we kind of adopted some of their stuff. And literally after like a couple of weeks, it wasn't doing anything. One of the things that we learned from China was you can't use prednisone for this. It weakens the immune system and they do worse with it. So lo and behold, about the first, and I'm going to tell you, this is more on a local level at this point, from my standpoint. First week in April, the hospital administration came to a lot of the physicians and said, okay, listen, what we're doing here for COVID isn't working. It's, the numbers are growing. It's not working. The people are dying. It's bad. We took these treatment algorithms from China and Italy and looked at them and we're like, all right, what are we doing wrong here? So they basically sent us all home over the weekend and said, all right, listen, Sunday night, we're all meeting. We want you to do your research, figure out another treatment plan for this.
Wow.
So we all did that. We all studied stuff. We all looked at stuff. We looked at it as much as we possibly could figure out. We all met and said, okay, this is what's going on. We took it from an outpatient level. We took it from an inpatient level. We took it from an infectious disease level, a pulmonary level, like all the big heads of my hospital were all together.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, all this is not working. And we came up with a better treatment plan. We started using prednisone. We said, why can't we use prednisone? Let's use it because it's an inflammatory reaction in the lungs. Use it. And within a few, it needed to be tweaked quite a bit. But over the next few weeks, we cut our death rate dramatically.
Amazing.
And we not only cut our death rate dramatically, we cut the amount of people on ventilators dramatically.
Oh, that's great.
And it snowballed from there. And now we have much better treatment options than we ever had before.
And that's what I've always thought too, Doc, really. As this has continued to go on and on and on, the better you know about this virus, the better you're going to know how to treat it.
Right.
That's tremendous. That's great news.
And like I've been saying the whole time, don't.
Hold on 1 second, guys. I gotta.
Yep.
So yeah, that's really
my Ring camera is constantly going off, and I'm shutting it off.
Okay.
My kids are outside playing.
That's great. But yeah, that's really encouraging, Doc. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean that to be able to hear and of the treatments that you guys have been going through, and all that stuff, it's just tremendous. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's what I think we've been saying a lot throughout this podcast. But like, stop listening to the media and start listening to your doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
the ivermectin thing is the big hot one out now. There was a small study with I forget the number. I want to say less than 10 patients.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make any clinical judgment off one study that small, but it caught the mainstream media and boom, it exploded.
Yes.
And that's what it is. We haven't used it at all. And the hydroxychloroquine was probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
That had a little more substance to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was some studies that showed the way the COVID virus affected it was similar to like a malaria scenario, which is a treatment for it. So there was a little bit of substance to it, but overall, more and more studies came out that showed it just really wasn't helpful.
Yeah.
And it became a news media thing where they were making it like a prophylactic. If you take this, you'll prevent it, but it actually causes heart problems and heart rhythms. So it's actually more dangerous to take than it was. So that's another kind of falsehood that, kind of spelled from this. That, I mean, again, I haven't used either. I've used the monoclonal antibodies, and I've used a lot of medicines I use to treat normal upper respiratory infections with.
Which makes sense. And I think that's the whole point of it is like, when you, instead of being in this disinformation game that the media plays, if you just not be fearful about it and go to your doctor's going to have a plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Or at least come up with a plan. As you see, Alex and his colleagues didn't have a plan, so they came up with a plan and they had success. That's what science is, and that's what people need to get back to in beating this virus and living with it, of course, because we're going to be living with it. But go to the smart people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, don't make it like, just because Fox News said you needed to do it, don't do that.
And for God's sakes, don't go to your Facebook group
she knows what's going on.
Don't go to your Facebook group and say, "Oh, well, I've done this." Well, that may work for you, but not necessarily for your friend. Like, talk to your doctor. Ultimately, that kind of a deal.
We've been angry about that for almost a year. Like, just the way social media and media has blown up, and it's like, that's not how we like. You know what I learned about COVID in myself? I checked with my doctor.
Yeah.
What should I do to help prevent this? Well, quit smoking. Eat better, exercise more.
Yeah.
Thank God we have a gym in our complex. Thank God they didn't close that down. Because that would have been, I would have been having those stories like Matt, where I'm 220 pounds because I didn't move for X amount of days.
I was very fortunate too, Doc, saying, just to piggyback again what John had mentioned, what I ended up doing when everything shut down, I go to an LA Fitness not far from my place. Could walk there if I want to and walk back. I ended up working out from home, and I kept the same routine Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and I would do those routines for like 45 minutes, and that helped me for a while, for sure. But I didn't agree with the fact that they had to shut down.
I didn't
Although-
either.
Although I could understand the thought process of like, okay, well, we don't want this to be spread throughout the entire gym community.
Right.
You're talking 50 to 100 people in there. They don't want, but I mean, you're working out, you know, you're exercising, you're getting your blood, your heart rate moving. It's so much better than just sitting around and doing nothing,
Right.
gaining all of the 19, 20 pounds that you're getting. And it's like, if you don't have a good home workout routine, all of a sudden it's like, oh great, what the heck am I doing here?
I think that did catch people off guard with that,
Yeah.
shutting everything down.
Right.
Yeah.
But that,
Yeah.
I mean, with this
I
virus,
was not in favor of that. I
Yeah.
think the three biggest failures of this so far was, I think, and this is not political in any way or whatever else. I think this is, we needed initially to have a unified national response to it.
Mhm.
Okay. Whether or not, you know, at the present administration aside, whatever else, we needed a unified government nationwide response.
Mhm.
They chose, and you can argue this either way, and this is, you know, that, you know, put it more in the states. The problem with putting it more in the states at that point is it's a much bigger problem than each individual state.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And basically it was the equivalent of having a peeing section of the swimming pool, because some states were
yeah,
very strict about it, some states weren't, and that created a lot of that hypocrisy you're seeing. Why is my state, why can't I get my hair cut, yet I drive 10 miles over the road into another state and I can go to a rock concert?
There you go.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that created a lot of division in what we're seeing now. We needed a unified response. The other thing that didn't help is, again, a lot of the media,
Yeah.
they grab hold of something and then they run with it, whether it's legit or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will beat anything to death.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
And
if
that
it's
didn't
right or
help
wrong.
either.
No.
Because I feel the problem now is a lot of everybody's personal feelings on this stem from a lot of hypocrisy and misinformation.
Yes.
And they're just not aware of the legit realism of it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they don't trust anybody anymore. There's a complete lack of trust from the top on down.
Yeah.
And that hurts us. That hurts us in fighting COVID. It hurts us as a nation. This distinct lack of trust of administrators and stuff like that who we elected to do the job for us. It creates a problem.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And really, I think the missing part in all of this, what really got me to, Doc, was the lack of eating right and exercise. That was completely missing throughout all of this.
Absolutely.
And what drove me crazy about it, because it's like, what better like message to send to the American people than to say, do not worry, do not fear this virus as best you can, but in the meantime, and I've said this before on the podcast with John, eat right, exercise, go outside, do whatever it takes to get yourself healthy and push
Correct.
health and wellness in that regard. That
The
was
three-
completely missing and all that. Drove me crazy.
The three tips for wellness, the three cardinal tips: eating healthy,
Mhm.
getting some exercise. You don't need to go crazy, but some exercise.
Yep.
And proper sleep.
Yeah.
They are the three best things you can do right off the top.
We'll put that on screen.
Right.
Put that right on screen. Yep.
The other things, the fourth one really would be, don't do bad things. Don't smoke.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
limit alcohol consumption.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't have a glass of wine here and there, but if
Yeah.
you're drinking, 30 beers on a weekend, that's probably
I want
29
to dial
beers.
it back. Yeah.
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 No, absolutely. Yeah. Anything
So
anything that, and that's general, anything that compromises your immune system, you
Right,
probably shouldn't do an excessive amount
Right.
of.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
but they're your if everybody would adhere to those, at least those three tips,
Mhm.
we're gonna have a much healthier society right then and
I
there.
know about that. And, again,
And
we'll throw that list on screen for our video, viewers here of the top three
Yeah, Doc said go to
best
bed.
things to do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll throw them up on screen.
Don't stay up late. Don't work too much. That's-
Yeah. Proper sleep, I think that's so important too. You know, and yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that, Doc. Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
great.
I mean, yeah, you don't need to overdo. I mean, listen, 7 to 8 hours is kind of that sweet spot for sleep.
Yeah.
And that's midnight to 7. 11 to 6.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
10
was
to
just gonna
5.
say
I mean, that's
10 to
all you
5,
really
whatever.
need there. Is what you're looking at, depending on your work schedules and stuff like that.
No doubt. No doubt about
You
that.
do buy into the you'll be more successful if you sleep less narrative that they run around with the media all the time.
Yeah, no, not quite.
That cracks me up. It's like, if you only sleep 5 hours, you can be more productive. It's like, well, yeah, but you're tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're gonna
be sick all the time.
you're gonna run yourself into the ground. I mean,
Yeah. No
I
doubt
could-
about that.
I could go down the highway and step on the gas pedal the entire way, but I'm gonna run out of gas a lot sooner than if I
Exactly.
drive as fast.
I remember the last job I had before the current one that I have, Doc. I remember there was a couple times where it'll be a quarter end, so you're talking like end of June, end of September, where it's like a big quarter end close where everything's got to get billed, and the company was based in the Netherlands, and I ended up having to work past midnight, 12:30 in the morning, processing all the U.S. orders, and it drove me crazy. I could not get good enough sleep after that. It's like, this isn't healthy. This is just not good. And I'm the only person that's doing this. It's like, I can't hand this off to somebody out in the West Coast to go ahead and do. I'm the only person that's doing it. So it was like, wow, okay, this wasn't healthy for me at all. At all. So yeah, no doubt about that. That's great advice. Well, let's transition.
Yeah, why not?
Now let's talk a little bit about your hobbies, because
Sure.
for as long as I've known you, and as John has known you as well, I mean, we've known you for close to darn near 25 years. Oh my gosh, we're dating ourselves. But I mean, the love affair that you have for cars, let's talk about that, and the Dukes of Hazzard. I remember one time you had the General Lee down with us, and we were in, I think it was Abington Junior High, and you took me on a ride with that thing. And my God, was that Dodge Challenger so loud. It was great. But talk about your love affair with cars, and specifically the Dukes of Hazzard. How did you get involved in that specifically? Because that's such a unique hobby to have, for sure.
Yeah, so there's a funny internet meme going around saying that some of the most expensive hobbies start with a 50-cent Hot Wheels car.
Totally.
And that's kind of how it all started. My earliest memories, I would have little Hot Wheels cars. I would just drive them around the house. Probably when I was 2. As a matter of fact, I still have them to this day, and I'll walk over and show them to you.
Yeah.
When I was 2 or 3, I got a Hot Wheels car of a General Lee, and it came in a little pack with a General Lee and a little police car. And I drove around, and then TV would come on, and I would see a commercial for the same. That was the same my Hot Wheel. I saw it on TV, and I was a young kid at that point, and it just was one of those things that started from there. And the merchandising for the Dukes of Hazzard back in the late 70s and early 80s was nothing like anybody's ever seen.
Yeah, it's huge. It was huge back then. Yeah.
Any possible scenario you can imagine had a General Lee on it, or Bo and Luke, or whatever.
Yeah.
And being a kid, that's always what I had the cars. I always, I was able to watch the show, and just I got more and more stuff from it. Some didn't survive my childhood, some did. It just kind of started. It kept going from there. So yeah, I'm gonna take you over here real quick.
We're in Doc's for audio listeners, so you're going to miss out on this.
So right down here, they are my very first Matchbox cars ever. And you can see they're all in various states of disrepair, but there's my first General Lee was right here. It's now gray. I don't know how over time the paint got off, but I lost the front of it and whatever else. And all started from there. So
yeah. That's amazing.
So I still have that stuff. And my biggest regret is I lost my big wheel. I had a Dukes of Hazzard big wheel. And when I was about 5 or 6 years old, we had a little hill in my backyard that I decided I was going to jump. So I had an old piece of wood lying around. I put it out there. I went off the hill on the big wheel as hard as I could, went and landed. didn't knew nothing about how to jump a car, weight, anything like that. Landed on the front wheel. The whole neck broke, came up, whacked me in the face, gave me a bloody nose and a big bump on my head. And there goes the big wheel. But
Life lesson.
right. At that point, I came to the realization that when they jumped the car didn't keep going afterwards like it was in the show. It actually
it kind of just crash lands, like it's
right.
It's that little aha moment.
Yes,
exactly.
So, but anyway, yeah, it started from there, and then I went through, high school or grade school and high school, and that was a lot of the show was still on during those years, and then it went into syndication, and when I was probably, I'm going to say I got that car when I was in just graduating college. I had worked all through college and stuff like that, and saved up enough money that I was actually able to find a 1969 Dodge Charger sitting in a field, and said, hey, I'm going to, I knew something about cars. I didn't know how to restore one at the time, but I said, hey, there's one for me. You don't see them around anymore. Yeah. So I was able to get it and learned and went from there and took off from there.
Just a beautiful, beautiful machine. Like I said, I had a chance to ride in that thing that you took me. It was just unbelievable. The power of those cars is just phenomenal. Phenomenal machines for sure. Yeah.
The 60s were great. They were made for power. They were not made for safety.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
four-wheel drum brakes on there. It took me an aircraft landing strip to stop sometimes.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome.
So it went from there, and I still have the car. I've had it now almost 20 plus years actually over 20 plus years at this point.
Yeah. And you restored many after that too. Was just your first. That was just your first one.
Yeah.
So I was always a big fan of the TV movie cars. Again, growing up watching the Dukes of Hazzard, I would wind up watching Knight Rider came on during the same time period. So, you had Kit, which was a black Trans Am. Smokey and the Bandit was my favorite movie. So had another black Trans Am just a few years earlier. And I was watching all those shows, and over time I've been very fortunate to be able to find some of those cars and fix them up and restore them and make them exactly the way they were on the show.
Have you taken them to car shows?
Yes, quite a few.
Yeah. What's the reaction that you get typically when people come across like the Dukes, like the General Lee car, and you see?
Oh, everybody loves it. Yeah. I mean, it's like driving in your own parade. It's hard. You actually have to change the way you drive, because people will be hanging out of windows, taking pictures. I mean, I'll be going down the highway and a car will be passing me. Everybody's beeping their horn. Everybody's doing this. They're holding that. You actually have to drive differently, because there have been people that have taken pictures and have swerved into my lane and almost run me off the road from it because they're so busy looking at it.
Oh my gosh.
It's overall. I mean, everywhere I go, it's overwhelmingly positive. With every car that I have, everybody's like, oh, I remember this and this and that. And, it takes me sometimes an hour to go get gas, just because I'll be at the gas station pumping gas, and I'll have a crowd that comes around all wanting to look, take their picture with it.
That's amazing.
So
it's
fun. It's such a fun hobby to be in. Yeah, it's such a fun hobby to do, and
because you get so many conversations from that, and it's like you're talking to people that are, oh, I remember this, this television show. This was my favorite episode, and I love the General. And yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, there have been so many iconic cars. Just thinking about that, of course I had the Batmobile back here from the '89 movie, and that I fell in love with that car. As a kid, it was just like, oh my gosh, that's like the greatest car I've ever seen, with the the sliding cockpit doors.
Right.
And the pop-up machine guns. How cool would that be? Like tool around the streets of Gotham, right? At the that kind of a deal. But then like Back to the Future, the DeLorean.
Right.
That was like, you saw that movie, that was '85, and it's like, oh my god, futuristic car, and it's like Doc puts a flux capacitor in that thing. And, I could see it happen. This tin can of a car going back and forward. It's great.
Right. It's funny. I've grown such a circle of friends around it too, that I can pretty much have a friend that has a movie car that you could ask for. I have a friend with a time machine DeLorean done up exactly like it, with the flux capacitor and everything else.
Yeah.
I have friends with Knight Rider cars, General Lee's. I have a friend with a BJ and the Bear tractor trailer. I have a friend with the tractor trailer from Smokey and the Bandit. I have a friend that has the Mad Max car, so like it's the Falcon and stuff like it's crazy what people are, get interested in and are able to accomplish.
Oh yeah. I think that's the moral of the story.
No doubt.
Is that when if you just keep your head down and you work hard,
right,
and you do what you love, you can create all these cool things that bring happiness to everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't rush it. Like the Knight Rider car I'm building, I've been doing that for 8-9 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to build because in reality, it is a junky 1982 Pontiac Trans Am.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. The problem is that all the stuff they add to it all has to be custom. They don't. I can't go to AutoZone and get a dashboard with 2 TV monitors in it and all the lights and bells and whistles. And
yeah,
so it's a ton of fabrication.
Right. Yeah. So you have to either fab it on your own, or you have to see. A lot of times somebody will be building one and they'll make 3 of something, and you get lucky and you get one of the 3 that he made. As a part for your car and stuff. It's just. It's and that's the way that stuff. Some of that stuff works, and sometimes it's just luck.
Really amazing. Yeah.
I got a gas pedal. If you remember, Kit had a gas pedal. It was the green that lit up when he stepped on it. All those green. I spent forever trying to make one on my own, and some guy finally did one better than me. And it came. I contacted the guy. He sent me it. It came from New Zealand.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Oh geez.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So and it's perfect. It's perfect for the car, and
just fits. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember. I think this was a couple years ago. They tried to reboot it on NBC. They tried to do a reboot of Knight Rider, and boy, that's an hour I went back from my life. Holy cow!
It just wasn't the same.
It just no. They tried to make it like eco-friendly, and it was blue, and it was like no, come on, Kit's not blue. It's like it's a black car. It's just a simple Trans Am. What more do you possibly want?
Some of those shows haven't aged that well.
Yeah.
When you watch them now, like I'm watching Knight Rider now, and I'm like, yeah, this is not aged as well as I would have hoped.
I know totally what you mean, but you can't get away. Like I think in my brain, like I can't get away from black Trans Am, red light bar, like you said, green gas, like
right.
You can't reboot that in my mind because that's the way it is, and that's the way it's always going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's just, but that again speaks to the iconicness, I guess you could call it that, of that car. And it's just, I think Knight Rider was only on for maybe 5-6 seasons, I want to say.
4 seasons.
Wow.
Less than I thought. Wow.
Yeah, only 4 seasons.
And that impact that car had,
right.
everybody wanted. It was like, I remember watching that show back in the the early to mid 80s, and it was like, oh my God, that's like the greatest car I've ever seen with the red LED.
Light goes across, like it could turbo boost over things.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
When you went on a foot chase, it would come pick them up.
Right.
Like it was the perfect car.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff I'm working on my car. Like I took the motor out, and I'm doing what's called an LS swap. So I'm putting a modern Chevy motor in it. And the reason being is I need fuel injection for it because it's going to have a remote start. I can't have a Knight Rider car and sit there and start on its own. I want to stand 10 feet away from it and just have it start up on its own.
Exactly.
So that's the type of stuff that I'm doing down there to make that happen.
That's awesome.
That is crazy.
That's such a great attention to detail too, Doc. I mean, that again, I think that fits your personality, and again, to your doctor, your attention to detail. So that perfect marriage in that regard for sure. So let's talk one final thing before we get the heck out of here. Let's talk a little bit about Philly sports. You're a big Philly sports fan, obviously. You're a hockey player. We've played on a number of hockey teams before. Real quick thought, what are your thoughts on, let's just talk Eagles and Flyers real fast. Eagles first, what do you think so far of the season, 2 games in?
So far, I'm not surprised by anything with them.
Yeah.
I expected them, I expected the first game to be the stellar game that they had, and I expected them to come back down to earth in the second game, and that's exactly what I have happened. Dallas, this will be an interesting week, honestly.
Yeah.
So I really think we're a week where you're going to kind of see what this particular team is made of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like everything that's going on so far. I mean, I think they're going in a good direction.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm never going to argue. Listen, Doug Peterson and Nick Foles will always have a very, very big place in my heart.
Yeah. Amen to that, brother.
You know, but
Yeah.
things run their course pretty quickly in the NFL.
No doubt. Mhm.
It's very rare that you get a group of a team, a part of the team that lasts a long period of time.
Mhm.
You know, and that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the natural turnover of the NFL in the Eagles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flyers, I'm not so sure what to make of them. I really have no good idea of what they're going to be this year.
It's going to be very interesting. It's almost like a complete overhaul of their roster with a couple of core people still there. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all molds together, particularly preseason and into the regular season as they start. Yeah.
I've always said the focal point of hockey has to be the goal.
Yep.
And I don't know what we're going to get out of Carter Hart. I really don't.
No.
I mean, he could be stellar. He could be awful. He could be what, and the whole team's going to ride with him, because you can have a mediocre team with a standout goalie do really well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you could have the 84 Edmonton Oilers with me in goal that are not going to do much at all.
Exactly.
They could score 10 goals, but I'm going to give up 12.
Exactly.
Every game.
Exactly.
You know, 9 or something like that. Yeah.
Right. You know?
Yeah.
So I really don't know how they're going to, I really have no idea what the Flyers are going to do this year.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. Yeah.
It's one of the few times that going into a season, I have no real framework. I have more of a framework with the Eagles, and nobody had any expectations on the Eagles at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I have more of an idea of how they're going to be than I do of the Flyers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, but we're hoping for the best. You know, I mean, I root for them all, and I hope for, you know, hopefully maybe the Flyers catch lightning in a bottle like the Eagles did, and
You never know. I mean,
do well. You never know. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's going to be
We need it being hockey fans.
right?
no doubt about that. Yeah.
I would never have thought the Eagles would have won the Super Bowl in during the 2017 season. I would never have bet money on that at all.
Yeah.
You know,
That was such a magical year from start to finish.
Oh,
And
yeah.
really, I think it was
Right.
the field goal that really got him, like Elliott's 61-yarder to beat the Giants, kick-started the entire thing. And they never
Absolutely.
stopped having that momentum the entire way.
right.
It really was amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I felt that way with the TO season with the Eagles back in 04.
Mhm.
Like, I thought that was a magical season. I really thought they were going to end up in the Super Bowl that year, and they did. And they came, you know, a couple points short and whatever else. But you know, it was one of those seasons there. But I didn't think they were actually going to go and seal it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just an amazing year, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I'll never forget. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
I don't think
2018. with
anybody
Buffalo.
will.
Yeah.
I think that was what the city needed. I think that's what sports in Philadelphia is now. Everybody, we're all like, huh, Eagles won. We'll be nicer to everybody now.
The pressure's completely off. Don't need to worry about that anymore. That's off the chart.
I think it made a big difference. I really do. There's a lot less angst. I mean, Eagles are still the number one team in this city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to go 50 some odd years without a championship for that team and being as close as they were numerous times. I mean, they're not the Cleveland Browns. They're not, or the Detroit Lions that have no chance every year. You know, they made it to the playoffs. They were a above average team pretty much the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And to be that, you know, to be above average for that long and not seal the deal is very hard to take. It's kind of how I feel about the Flyers at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Flyers have been an above average team for the better portion of my lifetime.
No doubt.
Yeah. You can't really think of in our lifetime very many bad teams.
No.
Yeah.
And they were
Maybe
never
one bad season.
They were never bad for a long period of time. They would have clunker seasons here and there that were just god awful. But the next year they turned it around and were much better. You know, they never had a long, prolonged stretch of badness.
Well, think about this. Like the 2010 season, they barely got into the playoffs, and they made that unbelievable run to the Cup final. And no one expected that. Everybody was kind of like, okay, well, we'll just see how they go. But they end up getting the right, Matt, and they just rode a hot streak all the way to the Cup final.
Right.
One of
That
the
game
better.
against Boston,
Huh.
where they were down by 3 goals in the
Close
first,
to
and
come
came
back to the tie and win. Yeah,
down 3-0, down 3 goals, and came back and won the series is still
in their building. Yeah,
right. One of the more unbelievable
yeah,
sports moments of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
no doubt about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so
just unbelievable. Well, Doc, this was great. We really appreciate you taking the time with us today and
Yes, thank you
talking
so much.
everything from from sports to everything with COVID and the great advice, obviously with medical, things like that and health and wellness. It was great to have you for sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. If you guys ever want me back again, you let me know.
Oh,
well,
no doubt
thank
about
you.
that.
Really,
No doubt
we
about
really
that.
appreciate
Yeah,
you
for
taking
sure.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll always be around. This is great. I think what you guys are doing is great.
It's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you
I'm
very
happy to
much.
be a part of it. I'm proud and honored to be a part of it. So
No
Oh,
doubt.
thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. So, Johnny, we get out of here. Why don't we hit our audience with our socials and
All right, I won't cuss because the doc's here. No, I'm kidding. So we are on just recently because of Steve Mary. We are on Facebook again, just putting videos out to make fun of Steve because he's great. You can also find us on TikTok and Clapper and Instagram for short videos that lead us to.
that would be our main YouTube channel, of course, the Two Noobs Talking Podcast. We would love it, of course, if you like, share, and subscribe to our videos. I'll get the word out. And then, of course, on our audio side, John.
Yes, you can find us on Apple. We're hosted by Podbean. We are also on Spotify, but that does really suck. We're Googleable. I like to say that all the time. We're on Google Podcast and iHeartRadio.
There you go. And of course, our show notes, we don't have any this week, of course, but our show notes can be found at twonoobstalking.wordpress.com. And again, as always, if you enter in your email address there and hit the enter button, the show notes will show up in your inbox the very next day. So again, my thanks and our collective thanks, obviously, to Dr. Alex Page for joining us. Doc, as always, great to have you with us. John, do you have anything final to say before we get the heck out of here?
No.
I
being
have one
said-
thing, if you don't mind.
Oh, go for
Please.
it, Doc. Go for it.
Okay. As I said before we got started, I am wearing my 87 Claude Humphreys jersey.
Look at that. Look at that.
And again, I wanted to hit the trivia with it. So rotating back, it was Claude Humphreys was a defensive end for the Atlanta Falcons. He then went to the Philadelphia Eagles and was on their first Super Bowl team in 1980. But bigger, he was in episode 4 of the Dukes of Hazzard. All ties together.
Love
That's
it.
that's the best trivia we've ever had.
I'm going to remember that when we hit episode 87, John. We got to remember that.
Yep.
So just make
We're
a
gonna
mental
remember
note. Claude Humphrey. Talk
Yep.
to y'all next
Claude,
week.
Claude Humphreys.
Yeah. Talk to y'all next week, guys. Take care.
This country was founded by geniuses, but it's being run by a bunch of idiots. Why do the members of the United States Senate continue to double down on stupid?